14 days in silence. Just me, my mind, and going in with 14 hours of meditation a day at a 14-day gratitude course that I took in Vipassana, which is in Idaho. So in this video, I'll talk about what my experience was with the 14 days, all the things that I learned, and I learned so much. And you should do it too. So as it happens with every course that I take, whether it's a 10-day or a 14-day, this is my first 14-day. I usually take the 10-day ones. But it's like, every time I go, I'm learning more and more and going deeper and deeper. And this one for me feels like a really pivotal, right? I've done, I think, 5 10-day courses so far, or 6, and a Satipatthana course. And so this one has just been really pivotal in helping me have a deeper understanding of Vipassana, right? I'm not going to claim to say I know all of what it is, but things just clicked for me at this sitting, whether it's things that have been happening, right? I've been practicing consistently for the last 3 years, every single day. And it just really prepared me for this longer course. I know it's not a 20 or a 30 day, but it is longer than a regular 10 day. And I went so deep, right? So why did I take this course? And what did I learn from it? Well, I took this course because I had time to do, and I always want to do more. And I felt like the last few 10 days, like the last 2 specifically, I get this feeling on day 6, 7, or 8, right? That I'm starting to work now. Like I've reached a certain depth of mind and I'm really starting to work. But then on a 10-day, when, it's day 7 or 8 and I feel that way, then there's only like day 9 left to work, right? Day 8 and 9 left to work, because day 10, you're just, talking and you're not really working seriously. So I always felt this feeling of I want it to be longer, right? I want to do more, right? Because it's like the first few days, Anapana days. For me, it's like so much of what has happened to me, my outside life. It plays such a big role in what's happening. But, after a few days, that like calms down and you start to go deep. So anyway, I was like, I really want to do a long course. I couldn't afford a 20-day in terms of vacation time and like all of that this year. And so I was like, I can do a 14-day. And what I really discovered is the depth of this practice. Now, I don't mean the complete depth, just the depth that I have gotten to myself experientially, which is what this whole practice is about, right? It's like, how do you experientially go to your depth? And it wasn't just about watching my thoughts or observing my awareness. It wasn't just about sensations. It wasn't just about concentration, right? It was able to just click for me. And this is what happened, right? I'm meditating. I get to day 6 or 7. I've reached a level, depth of mind where I'm like, all right, I can start to work now. And it was the best thing ever, because I was like, I have 7 more days left to work, right? Instead of two days left to work at that depth, I was like, holy moly, I've got 7. So we're going to go real deep. So there was a few things, a few setup things to explain kind of what happened, right? So I had a situation happen in my life a few months before this course. So a few months from now, because I just came back from the course a few days ago. And it was, there was a lot of anger revolving around that, right? And so I'd have periods, right, where I'm just meditating, I'm focused on the sensations, and that's all it is. And then there would be times when I would, start having thoughts and I start rolling, either in this thing that's making me angry or in, just other things, other memories, other imaginations, other things. But like this event was like the main one, right? It was like the big thing that happened to me, that, my mind was rolling the most in. And how it was, just observing my relationship to remembering this event and going through the story in my head, how it shifted during the 14 days would really explain, help explain what I was feeling. So the first few days, right? The first 4-5 days, even getting into Vipassana. Vipassana on a 14-day is taught on the 5th day and not the 4th day like at a regular 10-day course. That's one difference. But it's also taught in the morning at 9 a.m. or like 9:15 a.m. or whatever, after the 8 a.m. group sit and not after the 2:30 group sit as in a regular course. So anyway, the first few days, it was, I'm rolling in this angry thought, in this angry memory that, was really hurtful. And during that time, it's sort of how I've always viewed my thoughts and my memories and events, right? It's, my mind sets out the image, sets a scene, and, there's characters and there's events, and I'm either replaying it or I wish I could say this, or, there's like some vengeance. There's like all these feelings, right? And it's all happening at the conscious, visible level. It's kind of like I can see the scenery or feel the scenery, and there's words and all that good stuff, but let's not get worried about if it's seeing or sensing or whatever. So the first few days, I would just be feeling that, right? I would be feeling the raw emotion. I would be seeing what words I would say and what words would be exchanged back and forth, and how right I was or how wrong they were, or, just all of this going back and forth. And that's all I would observe. And my whole life, that's how I've always experienced my distractions. And even when I was meditating at the other 10-day meditations and during my journey, it would be like, all right, I'm observing my sensations, I'm focused. Then I would get distracted and I would completely lose, the focus and concentration. I would be completely absorbed in the story or the memory or the imagination or the thought or the emotion or whatever. And I would just lose it. Like I would just be in that, and then I would remember, then I would like try to go back and then like restart the focus. Right. And at this course, right, as the Vipassana days starting to go by, I started to get a different perspective, right? What's really important in Vipassana, an important stage to get to, that Goenka calls sampajana, is to be in a state of observing sensations anywhere in the body as you live life, right? As you're walking, as you're eating, as you're talking in the real world. But obviously on the course, you're not talking and you're not doing much. But the idea is to always be in constant contact with observing your sensation in your physical body as you do life, right? That's an important stage to get to. And of course, on a long course or even on a 10-day course, it's very easy to practice that because, you're in a meditative environment and you're just literally meditating. Maybe you're walking, maybe you're eating, and those are like the 3 things that you're doing. So I'm practicing sampajana, right? I'm practicing being aware of my sensations as I'm doing all of these things. And what started to happen was, as I was having these memories and I was remembering things, I was still maintaining my focus on my sensations, right? So it would be like half of my mind would be focused on the sensation, and then half of my mind would be rolling in the distraction. And I was able to do this simultaneously. And that's the whole idea of sampajana that I realized, right? You can do it simultaneously. Like, for instance, if you right now wanted to just focus on your feet, right? The sensations in your feet, as you're listening to me, you'll find that you can do both, right? It does take a little bit of attention and intention to like focus on the toes and listen, but you can do it without a problem, without it getting in the way of you hearing me, right? And understanding what I'm saying. Now, do you have the concentration to do it for the whole day? We are building up to that. But so at the course, I was able to maintain this, right? And this gave me a different perspective. So being able to hold both, have the sensations, or I don't know if I said this was the sensations earlier, but anyway, have the sensations on one hand, be observing the sensations on a couple inches of my body somewhere, and be in the distraction. It's less so a distraction. That's the other thing I'm going to get to of what it means to truly explore, right? But for now, we will call it a distraction, right? I'm lost in thought, but I'm not lost. I'm having thoughts and I'm observing sensations at the same time. So now this situation, right, kept arising in my mind, this anger, this betrayal, this event that was happening before. And what occurred, right, is I started to get a deeper perspective. And by that, I mean, earlier I described that I'd be focused on the meditation. And then when the thought comes, it fully takes me away and I'm only experiencing the memory or whatever, just from a mental awareness, emotion perspective, right? Just from he said, she said, or whatever, right? But now I was able to, as I was thinking and playing the whole thing in my mind, I was able to observe the sensations, and this unlocked something deep, because now I was able to start observing not just how my mind is reacting to the situation, but how my body is reacting to the anger, to the, rolling in that thought, rolling, replaying, doing all of that we do that our mind just does. And I was able to literally see from different perspectives, right? I was able to see my chest tightening. I was able to sense my sensations, right? The physical sensations themselves on the couple of inches where I was focusing was changing, right? It was reacting. It was like also becoming a little fiery, right? It was like becoming a little intense. And I was able to, see my breath sharpening. And this is all happening simultaneously, right? It wasn't that I was coming out of the thought and saying, I need to come and observe this. It was like I was simultaneously observing the rolling story, the rolling, play, and the things I keep saying and keep thinking about and all of that. And I was observing this and seeing the relationship between my physical body's reaction and my mind's reaction to this thing that I was rolling in, right? And this really made some things click for me, right? Because I'd always read about and heard about, right? And like Goenka says in the 10-day discourses, when you're angry or you're full of lust or you're full of this or that defilement, it changes the stability of your breath, right? And it creates some biochemical reaction inside of you that is related to that. And, from like, I did a little bit of biology studying, but it's like when you have anger or any of these emotions, right, it's sending so many chemicals throughout your body, cortisol, and pumping it full of chemicals to get into like a fight or flight mode, or it's fight mode, I guess, if you're angry. I always knew that, right? Logically and from knowledge, I knew that, but this was the first time that I was actually experiencing it, right? Because before it would be like, I'm in before in my meditation journey, it's like I'm either focusing on the sensation and I'm like meditating and I'm focused. And then when the distraction comes, I'm like fully out of my body and into the distraction. But now I was able to do both simultaneously. And so for the first time, I was able to actually experience how my body is reacting in real time to these things, right? And another thing is I really understood, this helped me really understand the depth of suffering. And it taught me a lot more than just the situation I was angry at. And even that, I was able to like fully, well, maybe not fully, but I was able to like heal that. And I'll explain more later in the video what I mean by that. But really what I appreciated from that was what I came to really understand about Vipassana, about the technique, right? And my mind just made a couple connections, right? This physical body is made up of DNA that has developed over billions of years, right? 3 point whatever, whenever life started back on Earth. And look, I had always struggled, right, in Vipassana and in Goenka's discourses about many lives and all of this rebirth and all of that, right? My mind always is like, I don't know about that, right? And I'm still like that. I don't know about that. If I get there and that becomes my experience, it is. But right now, I'm very skeptical, right? I'm like, that is not in my hands. However, I accept and, believe, if that's what you want to call, that this body has come through evolution, that there's DNA in here that's, been changing and adapting to situations and then has brought me here, right? So from that perspective of contained within this system is billions of years of information since the first life form until now. And, it's carrying this memory, it's carrying all this information, which it is, right? It's just like a bunch of different information that is giving this output. And it's billions of years old. So my subconscious mind, my physical body, they have been developing for the majority of those billions of years. They have been in a life and death environment, and they've had to react overtly, right? They have to react intensely, quickly to get the ball rolling so that you can survive, right? So that the DNA could survive, so that this information could survive, right? And what we have today is the survival of the fittest, the quickest reactor, the one that was able to adapt, the one that was able to survive. Now, this system, since 100,000 years ago, or really when we just became the dominating force on the planet, whenever that was, we're no longer, more or less, the average person is no longer in a constant state of fighting for their survival. And, I'm not saying anything about the people that are in war zones or extreme poverty where, they're literally in famine and stuff. Like, I do acknowledge that there are some people that are in life and death situations. However, for my situation, I am not. I live in America. I'm very fortunate. And I am not in life or death situations. And I would say a lot of people also are not in life or death situations. Some people are, but a lot of people are not. So with that said, most people in today's world are not in life or death situations. However, when we think and we think about a stressful work situation, we're thinking about a hard conversation, or we're remembering something that happened years ago, our bodies react like they're facing life and death situations, right? And our subconscious mind does not know the difference. It doesn't understand that a work meeting that you're dreading is not that serious, right? Like, you're going to go, it might be boring, or it might be, you might have to speak, you might feel a little anxious, but you're not going to die, right? But it doesn't know that. So as soon as that cortisol or whatever biochemical reactions start, it's like, we're going to die. So we have to react heavily, right? We got to just respond because there's danger. That's how this system has been built, right? That's how our subconscious observes these chemicals in our bodies that's released mainly now by just mental fears or mental anythings, and it's reacting like we're going to die, right? Like, there's a spike in our heart rate, there's tension in our muscles, like whatever it is, it's reacting very heavily. So in Vipassana, we're teaching our subconscious mind through observing physical sensations to be less reactive to these situations, right? To these things that we're thinking or things that we're afraid of that really aren't dangerous, right? And if you are living in a dangerous situation, then this system is pretty much a big help. But for most people in the modern world, we're not really in dangerous situations. So we are training our subconscious mind to see these imaginations, see these thoughts, and see these memories for what they are, which is just impermanent, fleeting, not a real threat, right? By simply remaining equanimous, observing the sensations, we're training our subconscious mind. And this was the first time that it really clicked for me, right? When I was rolling in this anger, right? This is what I understood, and this is what I felt, right? So I would be focused. I would be concentrated on the sensations that, let's say I'm just observing my shoulder area. I'm focused, there's no distraction, and it's all good. And then somehow this thought arises, right, of this angry situation. And at this point, I'm able to both observe the situation and the sensation, right? Let's say on my shoulder again. So now this situation, right, brings up anger, brings up hurt, brings up all these feelings. Now I'm observing, right, through maintaining my focus also here. Now I'm observing my shoulders tightening a little bit. The sensations are changing. And because I have this like spread out awareness, focusing on the story in my mind, I'm just saying over here because the story happens in my head and my body. It's like now my awareness is taking a bigger shape than if it was just solely focused on the idea itself. So now I'm able to observe my shoulders have been like lifted and they're tenser. I can observe that I'm holding my breath, right? Like in this area, my awareness is like, well, yeah, my awareness is like this. So in it, I can observe my breath sharpening. And now what I started to notice was, because now my shoulders is tense and my breath is tenser, that creates the next moment. It makes it more likely for me to stay in that state, right? Like it makes it, being stressed makes you more reactive, right? And so when these changes happen, they reinforce the reaction. Now, if let's say the anger arose and I tensed up my shoulders, and let's say I relaxed my shoulders a little bit, and let's say I also focused on my breath and made it more normal, then the anger has a harder time continuing. Whereas when I kept it hunched and like tense and my breath kept tighter, it was like fueling the anger, right? It made it more powerful and it was like feeding it. So there's this loop that I noticed, right? It's like the whatever you're thinking about creates a reaction in the mind, which creates a reaction in the body. And now this reaction in the body in the next moment makes it more likely to recreate or continue to create the whatever was happening in the mind. And then whatever's happening in the mind is creating this in the body. And then that in the next moment, it makes it more likely. And then there's like this loop that starts, right? There's this loop that starts where it's like feeding itself and it's multiplying. And I never really, I understood it. Goenka was saying in the 10-day, we're multiplying our sankharas, we're multiplying our misery when we react. And I never really understood that to this level before. Like I understood, if somebody yells at me in anger and then I yell back in anger, then they're going to yell back in anger and I'm going to yell back in anger. And then we're going to start this like multiplication. But then if they yell at me in anger and then I remain calm, cool, and collected, then they might still respond in anger. And then I remain calm, cool, and collected. Then they will cool down, right? They'll like, the more I remain cool, the faster they cool down. If I'm anger and they're anger, the more that it is going to escalate. So I understood the multiplication of reactivity, but I didn't understand it to this level, right? That even within yourself, anger arises, it creates this reaction in the body's reacting, then the mind's reacting, then the body's reacting, then the mind's reacting, then the body's reacting, right? I didn't fully appreciate or notice the internal multiplication of misery, which Vipassana is all about, right? It's all about really understanding this connection, right? So this taught me one big lesson. Usually before, my response, let's say before I pierce this depth of mind at this 14-day course, I'm, let's say focused and meditating, and then I start rolling in this, completely forget that, start rolling in this. Usually my responses would just include anything in here. So let's say, I'm replaying words and what I would have said and what I should have said and what they would say to what I wanted to say and then what I would say back and, all this stuff that we do, then a thought might come. Hey, you're just rolling in this. What's the purpose, right? It might be a question, or it might be like a statement like, think positively, So I would I would always respond with just mental stuff, right? It would always just be how to come out of it, recognize this and that. And it would just be a very mental reaction to the experience. Now I still do that. That is still healthy and good, I think, when done well. But now with Sampajana, right, being able to sense the sensation and roll in the thought, I was able to start responding with my body as well, right? It's not just your mind that responds. Now in the moment, that's the other thing, is to be able to respond with the body. It has to be in the moment, right? And so this technique helped me really start to respond in the moment, right? To relax the shoulders, to let the breath be nice. I'm clenching my fists, release my fists. I'm really holding my belly tight because I feel a fire down there or something. Relax that, right? Now I'm able to respond physically, and I'm observing the sensations. How am I reacting to the sensations, right? These are like these things I've just talked about, relaxing the shoulders. These are big ones, but observing the smaller sensations too, I can control that deeper response to the sensation, because also the sensation becomes tighter, or maybe my awareness itself becomes tighter as I'm focusing on it and rolling in this. And so now I'm able to have a multi-pronged response, right? I'm responding with my body. I'm responding with my awareness and sensations, and I'm mentally responding, by, later on what led to forgiving the person, to really recognize the misery. And really this lesson that I'm talking about, right? Just going deeper into my subconscious mind, having more ways of understanding and responding to the situation, was, what this really taught me is the depth of suffering that I never really fully appreciated that I was going through and that other people were going through, right? Because I never saw this depth of my mind, right? Like Goenka said, I always had this intellectual understanding, or your subconscious is so much huger than your conscious mind, and it's controlling all of these things. And it's, I always had this conscious, knowledge-based understanding of the mind and how we live and what determines our behavior and all of this stuff intellectually. But piercing to this level on the 14th day, right, I was starting to be able to experientially understand and feel, right, and experience this truth, right? I was able to experience it, and just feeling the weight, right? The hardest thing to do is to resist or to even change this system, right? Like I was talking about earlier, this fast, intense reactivity that's way faster than your conscious intelligence or your ability to rationale, right? That's the fight or flight response. It reacts way faster than you can even, comprehend what's going on. This system, right, like I was saying earlier, has been developing over billions of years, adapting to an environment that was life and death. And now we are trying to live a life, right? I'm trying to live my life. I'm trying to do my goals. I'm trying to help other people. I'm trying to be in love, meaning like, I also do want to be in love, but meaning like, I want to be a metta, right? I want to be full of love for others. I want to be a good human being that uplifts others and helps others and, all this good stuff. And I used to always understand things from a very intellectual perspective, and not really grasp how my subconscious and how this system that's developed over billions of years really played a role in the decision making that I do, in what I do with my day, in when I say yes, when I say no. Is it really me, right? Is it really me answering the question? Because from a reason, logic-based perspective, life is very clear, right? There's like, all right, here's all the things that you got to do. Take care of your mind, take care of your body, take care of your relations, take care of your career, take care of all these things, right? It's very simple and easy from a logical perspective. Once you're old enough, obviously, if you're like 8 years old, you might not understand to this level, but anyway. But what keeps me in the moment from making the decision to take care of my mind, right? Like before I like had a consistent practice, I fully knew meditation was good for me. What in the moment made me decide to not meditate, right? Or even like going to the gym. I know it's good for me. Or going to a yoga class. I know it's good for me. And I know if you ask me, do you want to take care of your body? I will say yes. But when it comes to the moment and the time to go, I often, sometimes say no, right? What makes me say that, right? What makes me make a choice that's not in alignment with my logic? And if you were to ask me, what are your goals? What makes me make decisions that aren't in alignment with that? And I always used to think it was just a question of will, or a question of strength, or a question of discipline, or a question of dedication. But with this experience, I was able to learn how these deep reactivities in the subconscious mind to any sort of inconvenience, right? So it would be like, let's say I'm thinking I should go to yoga class. In the moment that it comes to, let's say that the class is in like 30 minutes and I need to like go now. There will be just a little bit of resistance, right? There will be just a little bit of inconvenience of, whatever I'm doing. Oh, I'm going to have to stop this. And that little bit of inconvenience that I feel will create some reaction. And then my subconscious will react to that and say, well, we don't like inconvenience. We're going to react to it as if it's a very bad thing. And then that, again, like I was saying, creates the next moment's mind where now it is powered by this body's reaction, and now it's even more inconvenient. And then that creates more physical responses, and then this thing responds again. And then this all happens so quickly that it's like, oh, I just decided not to go. Like the time came and I just decided. It's like consciously, I wasn't aware of all this reactivity that is going on that made me make the decision to go, right? Before I would just be like, oh, I just, didn't feel like it and decided to go. Now I really understood where the didn't feel like it, how it starts, how it multiplies, how it rolls, and how it leads to me saying no, right? I never really, I had a gross understanding of it before, but now I started to really see how that multiplies, and then I make the decisions that I make. So one of the things that I learned was in small things, medium things, and big things, how much of an impact this deep system has, and how hard it is to try to live this logical life, this life of, hey, you know what's good for you, you know what's bad for you, do all the things that are good for you, don't do all the things that are bad for you, right? It's kind of very simple from a logical perspective, but from a lived perspective, it's so hard, and I never really understood that it's because there's this deep reactive system that we need to train. And so I was really appreciative of this course because it really showed me how Vipassana really is about getting to the root of the mind and changing the root of the mind, because you will never be faster than your flight or flight response. You'll never be faster than your subconscious, your physical reactions, right? Your cortisol and other chemicals will release so much faster than you're ever able to be aware of them, right? So you can't beat it on speed. You can't, it's just hands down, this system is way faster than you, and it's meant to be that way because our conscious intelligence, or whatever you want to call it, is too slow for those scenarios. So the only way to really, in the moment, right? And again, what matters most is how you respond in the moment. If you're angry for an hour, you say shit, you blow up stuff, you hurt people. And then later on, you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I was really angry. I'm sorry I did that. And you just did that for the rest of your life. You know, I mean, I personally don't want to do that, right? I want to be able to respond in the moment that I'm rolling in the emotion, right? You want to respond. You want to catch it as soon as the start. If you are rolling for an hour before, you get to 45 minutes, improvement, right? That's better. You get to 30 minutes, 15, 20, 10, blah, 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 blah. You want to get it shorter and shorter. And the only way to be able to catch it quickly, right, is you have to be able to respond strongly in the beginning. So, because sometimes anger will only last 10, 20, 30 seconds. But in that 30 seconds, you could do a whole lot of damage. So how do you catch it at the first instance? Oftentimes when we're just in our minds, I notice we are processing way too slow. We process way too slow. By keeping sampajana, by keeping in touch with the body as we're living, as we're working, as we're relating with people, as we're working out, whatever you want to call it. If we stay in contact with the physical body and the mind, moment to moment, then as soon as an anger arises, right, we now have a wider net to catch ourselves in the moments of anger. And now with sampajana, we're able to respond, not just with our minds, but also with our bodies, right? So now we're able to respond in a much better way, catch our reactivity much quicker, and hopefully make better decisions in our life, right? So Vipassana, more than just observing our sensations, right? You can almost miss the whole thing if all you do is observe sensations and you're like, what's the point of these sensations, right? What does it do? What do these sensations do? I don't know. They're just there, I guess. I don't get the whole connection to everything. And this is where sampajana really comes in, right? Because I will also agree, when you are in a focused, concentrated state and you're observing very subtle sensations, they just sort of start to be the same. They're either not super pleasant, not super painful, and they're just kind of sensations that are there on a very deep level. But with sampajana, right, you're taking this awareness and focus on sensations as you're living life, right? And that's where really this power comes in. Really, this is when, it's the next level. It's the next stage of the practice. It's the progression of the practice. And this is when, things just start to click, when things just start to make a whole lot of sense. So thank you for watching. If this resonated with you or you want to learn more about it, please subscribe. And I will make more videos about exactly more of what I learned at this course. Take care.